Hello there, this is Carol King, the founder of Custom Homebuilders Solutions, also known as CHS. This is the second of a set of videos that I'm doing about waivers of lien. There's probably only going to be this one and the previous one. So let me just start typing waivers in the index, and I'll select it, and we'll go to the waivers of lien menu. The first video was all about adding or editing waiver styles that you would be selecting and using while you are printing either progress waivers or final waivers. Please watch that video to see how you set them all up, the text for the waivers and how you do that. So first of all, I'm going to start sort of at the end. When we print either these progress waivers or final waivers, I'll get back to that in just a minute, we can elect whether we're going to track those waivers and store a hard copy of them or not. And if we track the waivers, they will show up in a waiver tracking table, and they may or may not have a hard copy stored based on choices that you make. So let me just open that because I'd like you to see the end result of that. This is what's called a tracking table. It shows the date that the waiver was printed. It shows whether it was a final waiver, in other words, all for the job. And it shows whether it was a progress waiver, in other words, it's for one check. That means it was a progress waiver. Now what I wanted to point out to you is that let's pretend that we sent one out on March 18th and we're going to mark it as returned. Now also I wanted to tell you that if you go to post a bill to Acosta Framing, who this is, it will pop up if this hasn't been selected as returned and tell you that there are outstanding waivers and let you open just the waivers for Acosta Framing that have not been returned yet. I just wanted to let you know that. But notice over here, almost all of them show that there is an attachment. In this case, and you'll see how I did that in a minute, I said no, don't add a hard copy. And if you click this paperclip icon on one of them, you can see that we have a hard copy of the waiver that we printed in our file cabinet so that we can just open it if we like. Also, there's a thing here where I could just send it to the person that we made the waiver out to, although you could have sent it before this, but you could send it again if you need to, and the contact's name will be right here. And then you can save it and click send, and you'll see that the body of the message says we're sending you a waiver, and there will be a short URL link to the waiver so that they can open it. I'm going to delete that, but I wanted to let you know that this arrow here means that you can send it. Now if you're ready to delete the whole waiver, you're going to need to get rid of the attachments because these are attachments in our file cabinet and we don't want them lurking around if you delete the waiver and have them be able to open it later in case it's not a waiver that you want to have around anymore. Or you might just keep these forever. So you need to delete the attachment before you can actually delete the tracking record. That's one thing, that if you do decide to keep hard copies, there'll be an extra step to getting them deleted out of the tracking table. This is an icon that if I went, oh, I do want to upload a copy of the waiver maybe that they signed. And if you got one of these back that signed, you'd have to delete the one that's uploaded, then use the upload icon, which you've seen in various videos around CHS about uploading, and I could upload, go to my computer, upload the signed waiver if I like. The other thing that can happen here is, like I did, you can set the date. If you decide it needs to be show another date returned, you could edit it. And instead of clicking to set, which means it would put today's date in, you can type today's date in, and you can put a little check note. However, that field, which you see over here, is usually reserved for if you void one of these checks, the tracking record is going to get marked that the check is voided, and that's going to be a check note right over here. You can see the paid cash account, various things here. It's just a simple tracking record. But the thing that's been added for my previous customers is that we are now giving the ability to upload a copy of the waiver or to just have a hard copy of the waiver stored when you originally print it and track it. You can get a results report by first of all searching. Let's say we want to search for all that have not been returned. So let's do returned no, submit search, and you'll notice the one that I marked as returned is not in here anymore. I can clear the search and it would come back. So that's a good way to just say show me all the ones that aren't returned and then print a report of those for whatever reason. You can click this to delete batches of waiver tracking records that do not have attachments. So none of these with paper clips would get deleted by using this batching of deletion, because we do have to take care of making sure waivers are not lurking around in our file cabinet, so we do need to do those one at a time. I also wanted you to know that if you click on this, you can see the detail behind the check Oh, that's all for the job. Let's see if we see any other. Yeah, there's a couple of them. That's all that was written for that job so far when we did this. Usually you do this at the end of the job, but I'm demoing. But it'll give you the detail of how much was on this check for this job. It is possible that this is not the amount of the check, but this is just the portion that was for that job. You can see that job Lubman too. All right, that's it for the tracking table. Hopefully that gives you a pretty good idea of that. Now look down here at the bottom. It says progress waivers versus final waivers. Since progress waivers are for individual checks paid to vendors, check dates are selected on this menu first. Since progress waivers are generally prepared on the date checks were printed, today's date is usually in here as the default, which you can see here. Also required is that you select one of those progress styles that you set up that we described in the first video. Let's just do conditional progress waivers that are 2-page. Remember how we were filling in page 1 and page 2 in our previous video for the text of the waiver. But since I'm a demo person and not really a builder, I don't have checks that I printed today, so I'm just going to do last year, just because, all of last year, just to see what I get. The other thing that generally happens is that people are printing waivers just for their subcontractors, or you might have set up a vendor type as trade contractors. So I'm narrowing it down to just the subcontractors. You can narrow it down to certain job types, you know, like specs, remodel. Maybe you're using some different waiver style for that, etc., or ask for certain check numbers to do waivers for, etc. But that's all I'm going to select as subcontractor and the dates for the year. So let's see what we get. First of all, it is telling you that if yes is selected to both post to tracking table and to store hard copy, CHS will store a hard copy of the waiver with markers and attach it to the record in the tracking table that we just saw. That's the ones that both have a tracking record and a paperclip icon saying that we stored a copy of the waiver. Also, instead of immediately opening the waiver PDF, CHS will open the Docs Tags window for the hard copy so that you can open the waiver, send the waiver via a comment, and or change the title of the PDF file that is stored in your file cabinet. If yes is selected to post to tracking table, but no is selected to store the hard copy, like it would be like this, no, don't store that hard copy, CHS will automatically open the waiver PDF instead of opening the Docs Tags window so that you can just print it or save it and do whatever you like with the hard copy. But there will be a tracking record that you did do that, but there won't be a hard copy attached. Now, let me put yes back here on the hard copy and show you what happens if I select no to tracking. Notice that store hard copy also got set to no because we need a tracking record in order to attach the hard copy to it. So if you say you don't want to track it and you don't want to store a hard copy, then both these no's, that means you'll just click to print the waiver, it'll open, and you can just do whatever you want with it. There won't be any tracking record with it, but you can do whatever you like with the PDF, save it, etc. So let's open the progress waivers list. Well, look how it came in as no and no because that's what I selected. So let's put the yes back. And let's put the yes back here. So if you open it and then you go, oh yeah, I do want to track it and I do want a hard copy. So what I'd like you to notice here is let's take a little look here. I want to show you something about the fact that waivers are separate by jobs. Look how this is the same check number to the same Clayton construction. But this amount is just for the Lubman 2 job, and this amount is for the Smith John job. In other words, you can print checks that have a whole bunch of jobs on it, and CHS will be smart enough to group in total by job and by check number so that it can have separate waivers for separate properties. So let's see what happens if we do, well, let's just do the Lubman 2 one for Clayton, 2-page with markers. Notice that it says one or more previous progress tracking records were found for this vendor job and check number. Since you selected yes to post a tracking record when the button to open a waiver is clicked, another waiver tracking record will be added to the tracking table if you click continue. In other words, you would have 2 tracking records, which you probably don't really want. So this stops and tells you, but if you click continue, it will open another progress waiver for you and put the second tracking record. So it's asking, do you want to continue or do you want to take a look at the tracking record just because? So it's showing you for Lubman 2 and Clayton, there is this tracking record that you just did yesterday. So maybe you don't want to do it a second time. The other thing is that you can track right here too, that same thing, everything for the vendor and the job and the check number that's on that line. So you can see how many tracking records you might have done for just the very same check and the amount and the job. So that's a way to check it. Let's just take a look here. We don't have any tracking records for this one, so let's do that one. Click to page with markers because we selected the style conditional progress to page, so we want both page 1 and page 2 to be on our waiver. It's taking a moment to prepare that hard copy and store it in your file cabinet and make a tracking record. You can open the file to take a look at it right now that it prepared. See if you're happy with it, and remember how we said we put markers in the verbiage that we set up, so it's substituting the sum of the check in here, payable to the vendor, the address, the actual home buyer's names, various things like that. We also put a marker here to show the vendor name, and we can see that it says 1 of 2 pages, 1 of 2. Now, of course, you could always just go ahead and save this down right to your own computer or download it, but we've already given you a hard copy, so you don't really need to do that in order to send this waiver to them. So I'm going to show you that right now. So let's close the waiver, and notice that it says send or save. So let's do that. To send the file or photo via a comment from CHS, click the send file button. To simply email the file or photo yourself, you could highlight over the short URL that's right here, do Control-C to copy it, and then go to your own email and do Control-V to paste and put it in an email. And when they click that short URL, the PDF of the waiver will open. But let's do send file so that we create a comment that can be emailed to the vendor, which was probably the one that's right here. We need to select one, and we'll say save. And if we expand this, we can see what message they're going to get. Let's see what happens if I open send. There'll also be other information if you're used to sending comments that will be in the email that we send to them. But here's that message. I'm not going to send this because I have made up things, but an email would be sent if I say send the email, and it'll come back and tell me that it was sent, and they'll get that short URL to the waiver. So that's a good way to send it. Let's just go back. I'm actually just going to delete this because I didn't really send it. And that's me deleting the comment that was created that would be in our comments list. And let's take a look at the tracking table. And now we have a tracking record. If I click the paperclip icon, I will see that waiver again as a PDF. I could again, like I showed you, send it. Like I said, if you want to delete this tracking record, you first need to delete the attachment with this one that says clear the attachment, and then you can use the big red X to delete the whole tracking record. The other thing is, remember how we said print multiple waivers without markers. These are ones that are going to be substituted the markers, and you do have to do them one at a time because they are huge memory hogs. If you tried to do some big list of 16 waivers that had all these substitutions in it. Let's see what happens if we do print multiple waivers without markers, and we can do waivers without detail, and we should have 16 of them. Yep, 1 of 16. This is that generic text that we put in that tab in the previous video for if we're going to print multiple waivers. That does not substitute in any words in the body of the text. Now CHS is putting the job address here, the buyers, but CHS is deciding where it's placed, and it's not in the middle of the paragraph that you wrote. Let me close this. It asks if I want to track those, but I'm not going to, which it would make 16 tracking records that don't have any attachments because we're not making hard copies of the ones without markers. The other thing is, let's print multiple waivers again, and let's do the one with detail. Should have 16 pages again, I believe, but it takes a little bit longer because we're bringing in some detail to put on top of each of these waivers. And by detail, it means the detail behind the check. So let's find one that perhaps has more than one entry. $2,200 and minus a retainage deduction. The check was for that amount. So there's 2 detail records there. See if we have any more. This particular check for $36,342 is made up of 4 payables lines, and this shows the detail behind the check is what's going on there. When I close it, it'll ask if I want to track it, and that can be very handy for you if you're not doing ones with markers and you just get 16 records suddenly put into the tracking table so that you could go mark them that they had returned the waivers back to you. So all of it's like your choice. Please watch help about all of it. Let's go close this and let's try a final. First of all, final styles are for the total paid to vendors on a job. The job is selected on this menu first. Final waivers are generally prepared near the closing of the job. Final means final. Now we don't have any that are near the closing that are still open in my demo thing, but I'm just going to choose, let's just do the final 1 page instead of the 2 page. Select job, and I don't know, we have some demo called H11 River. And I don't care about the vendors, but I might say the subcontractor types again over here is all I want to send waivers to. Now I'm going to say yes and yes so that I am tracking. So let's see if we have any for this PDA. And let's go ahead and delete that one. We didn't track it before, and so now we've decided we'd rather track it. So we selected to do a one page. So we only wanted to print one page, not the second page that we set up. So let's do one page with markers. The docs tags window is opening instead of the PDF of it because we need to be able to change the title if we like for our file cabinet. You can't change that it's a waiver of lien if you try to click that instead, because we reserve that name for the ways CHS can look up things for waivers of lien for you. But you can open the file again. Let's just open it real quick. It's now in our file cabinet. This is just the window to tag it and all that. And this is the one-page waiver. It says checks totaling instead of sum of check, and that it's final payment, etc. like that. However we set up our text, you control that, not us. If you watch the first video, you'll see how to set all of that up. Again, you could send or save it right now if you like. Since I opened it, I have to click save again because it puts a little marker on it. But anyway, now it is in the tracking table. If you want to take a look at it, you can see that it is. You can see now it has the attachment and all the things that we talked about on the others. But the check number says all for job. And if you drill down on that, you can see whatever the detail is behind that. I think that about covers it. This is now an update that I am giving everybody that we will store the hard copies or give you a way to just upload the signed waiver if you like on the tracking table, various things that have been requested, and I hope that helps, and have a great day.